Hey guys, thanks for joining.
Hello, hello.
Hello,
Happy,
hello.
what day is it? It's Tuesday, right?
I think it's Wednesday, Adam. No, I'm just kidding.
No, don't mess with me.
Actually, hump day is my favorite part of the week. We're almost to Friday. We're closer to Friday, but sadly it's Tuesday.
We will make do.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate everybody hopping on. I know it's the top of the hour here, so we'll get started. I know a couple of people will be joining a little bit later, but just wanted to introduce everybody. My name is Cameron Watford. I've been with Seamless AI for the past 3 years now in various different roles. Seamless is a real-time search engine for phone numbers and emails. And then I have Adam J with me, who is calling in from West Palm Beach, Florida, and he is the CEO and co-founder of Revenue Reimagined. And really what they are is a go-to-market special ops team. Then we have Michael Pfister, who is an AE at Seamless. And Adam, I may have butchered your
Nope.
1-2 line sentence, so call me out for that. But anyways, wanted to throw the floor to you guys and really ask kind of what are some of the worst ways that you guys have been asked to find contact data?
Let me count them. There's so much noise out there, Cameron, so much bad advice. The most recent one, we were working with a founder, and literally all this founder wanted to do was go buy inexpensive lists in upwards of 10 to 20,000 contacts each, upload them all into Salesforce and drop them all in a sequence. That is what they wanted to do, and that is not the way to do it.
Yeah, and I don't want to even get into the bad data that's in Salesforce.
No, I don't want to turn it into a Salesforce conversation. But no matter what I would tell this founder, unfortunately, they needed to learn the hard way. We bought 30,000 names. You could all imagine what the delivery rate was on that. And of the ones that did deliver, you could imagine how many came back that were like not remotely in our ICP, that were like, why in the world are you even messaging me with this? Spam.
Yep.
This was right before Google changed their algorithm. Had we done that now, the domain would have tanked.
Yeah. And I have so many folks that I talk to on a daily basis coming back to me saying, Cam, my email domain is trash, right? Can you recommend somebody or somebody to get me back into people's inboxes, right? Because once you send out bad data and bad information, it's hard to come back from that. Then you're doing a lot of work just to get good emails out there.
It's almost impossible now. Like the guidelines are so tight that if you're not pulling quality lists, which is step number one, scrubbing them if you're not using a source like Seamless that does that for you so that you have high accuracy, number two, and then using relevant, succinct and timely messaging, number three, you are going to get flagged as spam and your domain is going to go to garbage. And we could have a whole conversation on why you should never use your primary domain, but that is not the purpose of today's call. But yeah, the days of just picking, a few ICP filters and building a list, or going out there and buying a list because someone says, oh, we have the best data and we could do it cheaper. Yeah, probably not a good idea.
Right. Exactly. Michael, I know you've had a couple of stories with getting information. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so probably one of my, I guess you could say favorite, not favorite story was one of my first sales jobs, and small boutique web design agency, and took me to the state library, got me a state library card so I could access Reference USA and then with thumb drive export of a whole bunch of just information from the U.S. Department, or the State Department of Labor and Industry, of registered companies, and hope and pray that there's actually good information in there, and then go back and use Sugar CRM to be able to.
Wow. So you want to know a fun fact? Apple uses Sugar CRM. They use a custom version of Sugar. True story. I think they might be the only company keeping sugar in business. But I digress. Going to the library, Michael, that's almost as good as like just saying like, and I had a leader who did this in one of my very first sales roles. Like, here's the yellow pages, just go figure it out. Reference USA. I love it. We're aging ourselves here.
And how long did that take?
It's all about how far we. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
How long was that taking you?
Oh gosh, I mean, just to obviously just the travel time to the library, and then filtering down. I mean, through a endless list and exporting that, and then to Adam's point, having to go back and scrub that list. I mean, there was no email verification tools back then. I mean, it was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, here we have some information, and just start making calls or sending emails and hoping.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would say weeks to get through a list that was curated.
Insane. Well, God, we have a lot of different solutions now. Adam, I know you talk to founders, a lot of business owners on a day-to-day. What do you recommend? I know you said earlier, just typing in your ICP and extracting data is dead. What do you recommend?
Seamless.ai. No. See, I know the drill. No, in all seriousness, I think it starts with the foundations and the fundamentals, right? You have to know who your ICP is. You have to know within that ICP who your BP, your buyer persona is. Before you even go in there and just put, oh, I want all C levels that, are in XYZ space. Well, that's great. You're going to get the CFO, the CIO, the CISO that are wholly irrelevant to you if you go in and don't filter properly. To me, it starts with sales and marketing cam working together and really defining who do we want to target, and more importantly, why do we want to target?
Right. And two, that goes back to messaging of you can't just message a CEO, a CISO, and a CMO the same messaging, right? So that goes into play of knowing your ICP and then knowing how to target them. So no, that's really great information.
And to piggyback on knowing your audience and standing out. I mean, less is more these days, and you really have to make sure that you understand. And I use the old WIIFM. What's in it for me? Everyone's favorite radio station. That the message has to be on point, and it has to be naturally curious. Is a lot of the strategy that I've actually worked with my clients on.
And Adam, what do you recommend these days? Back in the day, it used to be one or two people that had that decision-making power that you were going after. What's a ranking now?
Yeah, and unless you're selling SMB deals, and we could certainly debate what SMB is, but unless you're selling like low value, couple $1,000 deals that are gonna, that someone could put on their corporate card and not have it be flagged by, any financial team. I've not seen a deal close that doesn't involve, multi-threading with at least 5, if not closer to 7 to 10 people. And it's funny, right? You shouldn't message 10 people at one time with the exact same message. That probably isn't going to work. Although, and we're all nodding our heads, we see it done all the time, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I get an email, Dale gets an email, Jake gets an email within 12 seconds of each other. And it's the same email other than our name being changed. And that happened to me countless times, even when leading larger revenue teams. But 5 to 7 people spaced throughout the organization at different layers, both above and below the line.
Yeah, totally. And when you're advising on how to go to market, after you have your buyers, after you have your titles to go after you use Seamless to grab their contact information in real time, which is important because, again, people change jobs all the time. Data can get stale very quickly. So if you're just going into a database that could be old and out of date, you're targeting the wrong person. How many times, and I'm guilty of this, have you emailed somebody and they're no longer in that position, right?
countless times. I'll still say I'm guilty of it. Like we do cold outbound at Revenue Reimagined, but for something different, we do it to add to our newsletter subscribers because we're big believers that owned media is where you want to be. And as much as I love and live on LinkedIn, like LinkedIn could get mad at me tomorrow, and my contacts don't matter. So we try to build our database. And when I initially did it, we got a list from a different data provider that someone provided to us, put them all into a different tool and use different domains. And I cannot tell you the amount of, hey, Adam, thanks for your, and automated, but hey, Adam, thanks for your email. Cam no longer works here. Please, reach out to so-and-so.
Yeah.
For my purpose, probably not a huge deal, right? It's a newsletter. But if I'm truly someone who is trying to work a buyer committee and trying to sell a product, like that's a huge issue.
Yeah.
Like that's time. And the sign back here used to say time kills deals. I was told that buyers don't like that. But that's time, that's messaging, that's all sorts of things that are wasted that you could avoid by validating your data.
Yep, exactly. And two, obviously you have to have an expectation with folks, but at the same time, it's good to not have to have that, at least run into it less and less on a day-to-day basis. Now, after you get the contacts from Seamless, what are you doing after that? How do you make sure that your emails are getting sent out properly? How do you do your messaging? Like, what do you do?
I mean, I think every company and every situation is different. For us, we believe a lot in personalization. And it's balancing scale and like truly doing things that don't scale, right? And when I say personalization, I don't mean, hey, Adam, I saw that you used to be in radio. That's not personalization. Like finding something on my LinkedIn profile from 20 years ago, it isn't personalization. Or, hey, I see you live in Florida. You might as well say, hey, I see you breathe oxygen. You take the time to really understand the person, the company, their role. There are so many great tools out there that AI can help with this, with scraping, 10K filings and looking at, recent podcasts that founders were on. And you make that message really highly relevant to reach out. Number one, we follow a general guideline. We will not email more than 5 people in the same domain in a single day. Number two, and we will not advise our clients to send out more than 200 emails per their internal domain per day. Number 3, it's a balance of not only do I need to build the right list, which is critically important, use the right filters, import it and scrub it the right way. But if you're not activating that list properly, as good as all of that work is that you did, you wasted all your time because now you just sent out 5,000 emails at one time, and Google don't like that.
Yeah, Google does not like that. So you have a couple of different domains that you're using, and you're still getting 5. You have 5 domains that you're using. Okay. That's smart. That's smart because too, Google. You have to. I remember
we only email clients from our primary domain. Period. The end. Hard stop.
Okay. Period. I like that. Yeah. We were working with a vendor before and almost had a complete meltdown because Google was changing their laws. We were having to get more domains because we do cold outbound every day, all day, right?
Yeah.
And
I bet you it doesn't come from seamless.ai.
It doesn't. Internally, we have a couple of different domains.
Yeah, you have to. And I think that's what people don't realize. Like, listen, cold email and cold calls are not dead. And I think the other thing that we haven't touched on is like contactless management relates to your cold calls as well, not just your emails. They both work when, again, it's relevant, when it's timely, and when you're addressing needs. There is so much that goes into building the right list, but then you get on the phone and you're like, hey, Cam, my name's Adam and I see that you're the ABC at XYZ, so you must be struggling with DEF. Dude, you don't know anything about me. Just because my title is such and such doesn't mean that my problems are X. 5 minutes of research is all it takes. That's it.
Yep.
And I, having led AE teams, having led BDR teams, having a stepson who just got his first BDR job, I can tell you that I would much rather have someone call 20 people a day and have 10 highly relevant conversations versus dialing 150 people a day, giving horrendous pitches and having 3 conversations. I'm the opposite of a lot of leaders. I don't play the volume game. I want the quality game. It's going to win every single time.
Other than LinkedIn, what are some good resources to look at within 5 minutes? Like, let's not make this a 10, 20-minute research project, but what are some good resources that you use for that personalization?
So for me, other than LinkedIn, I will look at Facebook and Instagram if they have something social, like I want to see it, just to kind of get a feeling of what it is to do, what they like to do. Company websites, I'll do a Google search to see if they've been on any podcasts, what they speak about specific to podcasts, not on LinkedIn. And then lastly, if it's a larger company, 10K filings.
Okay, nice. That always stumped me as a younger BDR. How do I not spend as much time on research, but not just go off?
Yeah. And it's not just what you're into. Like, think about it. Like, if I'm a VP of sales at Seamless and someone is prospecting me, how are you going to say or do something that's really relevant? Maybe researching what my CEO is speaking about that are the key priorities of the business. Because if you could help me help him with the key priorities, now you're making me a rock star. And everyone wants to be a rock star and look good in front of the CEO. And CEOs love to talk about their priorities.
Or business news. That's also
100%.
Good avenue to take.
So Adam, out of curiosity, I know we've been talking a lot about like net new prospecting. Can you touch on a little bit in terms of, with the amount of job changes that are happening in the market, being able to help your clients, go after people that already know, like, and trust them?
The amount of business I've seen account executives get from the same person over and over and over again cannot be understated. We all have those tools that we like, right? Like, at the end of the day, I, for the longest time, was a champion of a particular software. I, at 3 different places, implemented that software. And I promise you, my AE knew that if I went to place number 4, they probably had a good chance of closing that deal. If you're not using your data provider to set up filters and tools related to tracking job changes, job movement, even promotions, but from company to company, again, you're doing yourself a disservice. But the caveat here, Michael, isn't, hey, Michael, I saw that you went from Seamless to Adam's data company, would love to talk to you about ABs. Like, you can't be that blatant. Again, it has to go back to value. It has to go back to pain. And it has to go back to you building that relationship as a true trusted advisor, not just a salesperson.
That's huge.
Great point.
I think we're wrapping up to 11:20. I think we reserved the last 10 minutes or so to do some Q&A. So not sure, Gina, if we have the floor open to that or not, but I think we're ready.
I was gonna say, I think, Cam, that we're here for an hour. I think we have 40 more minutes to talk.
We have 40 more minutes. Okay. Gotcha.
I got the first 20 minutes in the spotlight.
Okay. That makes sense. Well,
and there are questions in the Q&A. Let's see what we got.
Yep.
We mentioned scrubbing a list. Do we still need to use a tool like NeverBounce to check the validity of email address pulled from Seamless? I'm gonna refer to the Seamless folks for this one.
I can go, Mike, or you could go.
Yeah, I can just dive right into that. So actually, part of our validation process, when a contact is being researched, we're actually running it through the validation process to make sure, hey, is that email address valid? Is it invalid? Is it unknown? Is the domain no longer valid as well? Because I'm sure there's a lot of lists out there that, or even domains that still are out there on the public sector, but it doesn't go anywhere. So you'll have the data transparency on the back end of what the validation process produced.
think there was one more in here. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, I got it. How do you know if your email domain is flagged as spam? There are so many tools out there. Mail Genius has a really good one. You just send your a test email, and what that's going to do is validate your DKIM, your DMARC, your SPIF, and check you on all of the major spam lists to make sure you have that set up. 9 times out of 10, with cold email, if you're going to spam, it's usually because you don't have your DMARC, your SPF, or your DKIM provisioned properly. The other time, it's because you have been added to blacklists because you keep spamming people. Here's the good news and the bad news. If it's DMARC, DKIM, or SPF, very easy to fix. I mean, if I could go into advanced DNS settings and fix it, I promise you can. If you are on a blacklist, that is a much more difficult conversation, and that is why you do not send cold email from your primary domain, ever.
And Adam, how long does it take to warm up those domains?
Yeah, so my preference is a 2-week warm up. There's lots of different tools, none of whom are paying to be promoted, so I'm not going to promote them. Yeah. But there's lots of different warm up tools. But typically, a 2-week warm up, anywhere from 20 to 50 emails per day, and you have to. If you're not warming up your domains, again, you're putting yourself in a situation, and if you're not doing it with a reputable tool, you're going to find yourself in the same situation, because Google knows if you send out 50 emails at one time that all say the same thing and are all getting the same yes response, that you are warming your domain. The other thing that you can do, if you're using something, if you're doing things like a newsletter, reply to your own emails. Don't put them in the trash. Like every newsletter that we send out, we rotate which one of the 3 of us sends it out. It goes to all 3 of us. We always reply with something unique just to keep that domain health and reputation up. The worst thing you could do is take an email from someone and either put it in the trash or not respond to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how often do you recommend enriching or updating your current list of contact information?
So best practice is probably once a quarter. I say once a month personally, because in today's climate, there's so much movement going on. And it's not worth it to me to, again, damage my domain by sending out emails that bounce.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious what Seamless says is the right answer. Is it quarterly? Is it monthly?
I'm gonna speak for myself here. Mike may have a different opinion. I am on the same boat as monthly as you have. Okay. It depends on volume, right? Yeah, if you're a company that's sending, or a person that's sending 200 to 500 emails a week, absolutely 100% you need to update your database or enrich your database every month. Now, if you're on the lower end of sending 100 to 200 emails, maybe even 50 a week, then I think once a quarter is fine.
Fair enough.
And I would actually even piggyback on that a little bit more in detail, because it depends on your audience. It depends on your target, your ICP. I mean, you could be targeting an industry that has a very high longevity in those roles and within those companies. So knowing your audience in terms of how transient they are is really important to understand as well.
Correct.
Yep.
Agreed.
Cam, there actually is another question in here that might be more specific to the process within Seamless specifically. And it was about, even valid email addresses can sometimes bounce. Can we explain why?
Gotcha. I think really here with the validity is how we validate our contacts is we're pinging the server in real time. So let's say you search for that contact April 2nd, and then you go and send that email a couple weeks later. Maybe that person has changed jobs. Maybe that person's no longer there. And that's why that valid email that you have is not being received.
Great question, Sahid.
Yep. John, I see your intent question. There's actually a filter that you can, once you do your intent, if you're using Seamless's intent, to filter down for company size. So you can just match the company size that you're looking for, which is big. Ooh, SMS text blast. Any comments?
I will tell you my personal preference as a revenue leader who's led sales teams and as someone who gets prospected often. I despise them. I find it so offensive. You might as well cold FaceTime me. Once you've established a connection, like I have no problem being texted. It's arguably my preferred method of contact. But some generic like reply here to get ABC, like you haven't earned the right to text me.
Yep. Yeah. Michael, any comments on this?
Yeah, so I would definitely, agree with Adam. The relationship, it has to be established for any type of text communication. Now, if they've opted in to receive notifications about upcoming events or things of that nature, being able to have an opt-in to be able to receive those types of details, I think, is really important. If texting is one of your ways of communicating updates out to your list. And that's really critical to be able to understand that process as well.
Yeah.
Great question from Greg is, can we go into a little bit more detail in terms of what we mean by warming up a domain? Adam,
Yeah.
you want to tackle that?
Sure, 100%. So when you start a new domain, every every domain has what's called a sender reputation, right? And that is basically a score, if you will, of how often your emails are landing in the inbox, so going to the right person, how often your emails are being marked as spam, so they're going to the inbox, but being told, never gave this person permission to email me, and how many positive email interactions you get, so like replies. So while Google might not look at like the total context of the reply, like they're using AI and sentiment to know if it's a positive reply or a negative reply. What warming up an email does, or warming up a domain does rather, is it is taking a custom email that is arguably gibberish, sending it out to a predefined number of email addresses that the company has created across a plethora of domains, sending those out in bulk to, number one, ensure deliverability. So we're ensuring that that deliverability happens. Number two, ensure that it doesn't get marked as spam. And number three, either through automation, or there are companies that do this individually, have people manually reply. People are responding with, sounds great, this is interesting, tell me more, I love this, what do you think? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to ensure that positive response. By doing all of these things, you are warming up that domain and increasing that domain score, so that the more emails you send, the more flexibility you have with errors of, oh, we sent out 100 and 6 of them were, not a valid domain, or we sent out 200 and 1 of them were marked as spam. That's very different when you send out, 200 and no one's ever responded to an email before. So it's warming up that domain and keeping that sending reputation high.
Mm-hmm. And can you, to expand on that, can you just delineate in terms of deliverability and domain reputation?
So deliverability is the percentage of emails that you send out that actually land in the inbox. That is deliverability. So if you are getting a list of 10,000 emails from Seamless and you deliver 5,000 of them, that would never happen, but you would have a crap deliverability score of 50%. Google, Yahoo, Microsoft then use that, because every time you get that mailer demon that comes back that basically says invalid email, that's giving what I'll use relationship terms, that's a red flag telling your email provider that you are sending emails you're sending cold emails, right? These are not validated. If they were validated, you would never get a bounce back. You don't know who you're emailing and you're spamming the system. The way to fix that is, again, using a tool like Seamless that validates your emails, also warming up your emails to make sure you have deliverability. Sender reputation is the responses. It's getting those positive yeses. It's getting people, it's the reply rates. It's getting people to come back to you.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yep, that's great. Yep. And this is recorded and it will be shared via email after this session. So you guys have access to it for sure. Awesome. Let's talk phone numbers, Adam. Let's say, what are your thoughts on getting an inbound lead, or you have a conversation with somebody that also works with the DM? What are your thoughts on using a direct dial or cell phone number to contact them?
I love it. I am the minority. I still take cold calls. I don't do it all the time, but like if I'm free, I'm going to answer the phone because I don't believe in advising a team to cold call and then being a hypocrite and not taking cold calls. We could talk about this for the next 4 hours, by the way. But again, it goes back to being highly relevant. No one, I don't want to say no one. Very few people work in an office and only have a desk phone. Very few people who work in an office, transparently, even have a desk phone. Like, we all live on our cell phones, no matter what your role is, whether you're the CEO or whether you are, like, unless you are in the hospital, in the purchasing department, like, you have your cell phone. I think that calling someone on a cell phone, my belief is not disrespectful, so long as you keep in mind, number one, this is this person's cell phone. Number two, get right to the point of why you're calling. And number three, you better be solving a pain point. If you're just calling to like show up and throw up, yeah, you're wasting my time and I'm probably going to block your phone call. If it's highly relevant, listen, we just redid our whole website. The guy who got the deal cold called me. Like, he was timely, he was relevant, he had some intent data that showed that I was looking, and like, his cold call was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a client that actually, they mainly work off of inbound leads. They're super lucky in the fact that they have a bunch of inbound leads coming in, and they use Seamless to identify other people in that organization. But outside of this, guy wouldn't respond to his email. Months, weeks went by, and they got the phone number on Seamless. They called him. 14K deal was done in a matter of 5 minutes.
Crazy, right?
Yep. Yep. Very crazy.
Yeah. And
cold calls work, folks.
Yeah. And that's why I'm a huge fan of omni-channel, multi-channel approaches, because you never know what that person's preferred form of communication is. So you have to be present and relevant in the multiple avenues to be able to engage. One of my, as a client of Seamless before I joined the team, one of my largest deals came from me getting a CMO of a university on their personal cell. And they asked me, like, hey, how did you get this number? I said, oh, I use a tool called Seamless. They identified this number. But it sounds to me it was inappropriate for me to call you on this number. Oh, yeah, can you actually call me work cell? Well, it was the next one on the list, in the list of the phone numbers in Seamless, but ended up getting a 6-figure deal out of that one cell phone cold call.
If you're not meeting people where they are, like listen, I check my email a couple times a day. I'm not an email person. If you call me, if you Slack me, if you text me, like that's where I live. You know, we are working with a client where everyone lives on Instagram. That's just their ICP is an Instagram. Like you can bet we do, you know, IG DMs. You have to make sure to not only multi-thread, but multi-channel your outreach. A good sequence, if you will, is going to be a mixture of phone, email, LinkedIn, social, at different times of the day with different messaging. That again is highly relevant. I can tell you people that would never, ever, ever respond to a cold email that would answer a cold call, and vice versa. I could tell you people that would never pick up the phone, but if you send them a great email, they're going to respond to it. But you don't know that, right? I don't think, unless Seamless has some cool new tool that I don't know about, I don't think you could go on and it says, oh, this person loves to be cold called, this person loves to be emailed. That would be very cool technology to track response rate.
That's right. That's right. I think we have a question from Chris. Chris, there's a couple of different numbers located with the contact data. So contact phone on the second bar there on Seamless is going to be either a direct dial or cell phone number. If there's more than one number, I would try more than one number. I think that's what Mike was saying to his point is he tried the second number down. And Mike, you could go into that a little bit more as well.
Yeah, and that actually piggybacks on another question in terms of the contact phone numbers. We're not actually validating and verifying the contact phone number. We're looking at frequency and recency in terms of their digital footprint. So we've found multiple phone numbers within their digital profile. The one at the very top that's listed as primary is going to be the one that we saw the most often, most recent. As you go down that list, it doesn't mean that there's going to be less accuracy. It just means it was less frequent and less often, and it was harder for us to match back to that digital profile. So I personally, as someone who has done cold calling his entire career, I'd much rather have 5 phone numbers to try and find one that did work versus having just one phone number and it being a bust and then I'm back to square one.
Yeah. And that goes back to Adam's point of meeting people where they are. A lot of folks, depending on who it is, don't love to be cold called. So they're not giving out their cell phone number. The majority of the time, they're giving out that direct office line. So yeah, exactly.
We have a great question from Ionis as well that we can come back to also.
Yeah, I go for it, Michael. I mean, I was just going to echo what you said, right? Like if you have 3 numbers, call the 3 numbers. Like don't be afraid to do that. Like the more avenues you have to attempt to make a connection, the higher percentage of a connection you have. The worst case, the worst thing that happens is someone says, don't call me, or they're like, you know what, call this number instead. Okay. As long as you're respectful. Where you get in trouble for cold calling, in my opinion, is when you're just an a-hole about it. Like, just be respectful.
So true.
Like I ask people when they call, I'll answer the phone and they'll start. And the first thing I'll say is, this a cold call? Give me an honest yes. The next thing out of my mouth is usually, you got 90 seconds. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Cam, the question is about, as a founder and a sales noob, and from an engineering background, what are the essentials to get started? How can I stop being scared of the process of cold emailing?
Yeah,
I'm gonna let you spearhead this one.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think going back to the earlier conversation is, one, understanding what personas that you need to be going after. So identifying those titles, identifying some of those buyer committees, and then 2, going and getting that contact information in Seamless. So filtering down by company size, by revenue, by location, by those titles, you can get down to your exact ICP and then build your contact search from there. So once you build that contact search, save that search, right? There's going to be new folks that come into that exact search every week, and you want to be the first person to reach out to them. And then from there, just exporting that into, I have a couple that I won't recommend, but any sort of emailing outreach campaigns you can, and warming up that domain, sending out those emails, making the messaging targeted as much as possible. And I think there's also a numbers game involved as well. I think it's a good mixture of volume and targeted approach, but I think that's really all that comes down to in a very broad sense there. Adam, if you want to dive in, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It starts at the top with the ICP, the proper download. I love saving the search, utilizing a tool. The only thing I would add is have, secondary or tertiary domain set up, so you're not using your primary domain. Ionis, shameless plug, and this is not to make money. I will just help you. Drop me an email, adam@revenue-reimagine.com. I have a one-pager that I could give you with some best practices.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do is just start. because
Yes. That too.
Well, you're going to learn. I mean, I came from a marketing background. I mean, 15 of my almost 20 years of sales experience came from a digital marketing background. Is that you should always be bettering your best. You should always be testing different messaging, different subject lines. And a lot of the times that you're going to learn is just by doing and try, fail, adjust, and being able to pivot on how you reach out to these different decision makers and influencers.
Absolutely. And thoughts here, guys. What about dialers? Thoughts on single line dialers and thoughts on multi-line dialers?
I'll let Michael go first on that one.
So a vast majority of my sales career, I didn't have those types of tools at my disposal. I was either using a desk phone or I was using I was using Teams not only for meetings, but I was also using it for my telephone system. So I didn't even have a desktop phone. So I'd primarily use my cell just because I hated calling via Teams. So dialers, if you have a team of people that are primarily focused on making cold calls, I say are a huge time saver. As an individual contributor, I'm not a fan. Adam?
Interesting. So I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth as well. As a leader, I love me a good dialer. I want my team to dial out of one system for tracking purposes. There's a lot of good dialers out there. I think that, it allows for a level of efficiency and increased productivity that you just don't get from calling from your cell phone. I won't even say desk phone. And I think the technology has enhanced a ton. I don't like parallel dialers for a plethora of reasons. The day's going to happen when two people pick up. I just don't like them. As a individual contributor, as someone who dials, like, I live on my cell phone. I don't want to dial out of your darn Salesforce instance or your dialer instance. Like, I want to live where I'm comfortable, and I want the clients to call me on my cell phone, not on some number that rings through my computer and goes into a headset. And like, I don't think anyone has ever solved this problem yet. There's like ways to get it to your cell phone and not, but it's a double-edged sword. Like, at the end of the day, it to me is, what is the volume that you expect? If you are in a, forgive me, turn and burn operation where it's all about making hundreds of dials per day and dial, and you have a super low connect rate, a power dialer is fantastic for you. If you're focused on quality conversations, research of who you're calling, and you have set a precedence with your team that activities still need to be logged, but you are comfortable with them using their own devices, I have no problem with people calling from their cell phones.
Great point.
Yeah. And I think too, some dialers do a good job of having it where you can dial in through your phone. And that way, whenever you do get a call back, it routes to your cell phone, because I'm a texter, right? I only text when I do have that first point of contact, right? I'm not going to text somebody to randomly hop on a demo, but I do, once I have that point of contact with them, we've established a relationship, I do like to text them, and texting them from a dialer number is just weird, right?
It's horrible. Like, I agree with you. I'll tell you, like, I've taught people in sales process in a long time. Like, after the end of the first call, one of the very first things I say is, hey, Cam, listen, like, I get it. Emails are going to get, if you're anything like me, like, emails get buried. Can we just exchange cell phone numbers so we could text if we need something? Promise, not going to spam you, not going to blow you up. It's also the best way for you to get a hold of me.
Yep, 100%. And I know as an SDR, it was very helpful to have a dialer. It helped with my efficiency. And we switched over from being in a multi-line dialer to going to a single line dialer. And that helped us. One, you had a little bit of prep time to look who you're calling, to understand where they're at, look at their LinkedIn, look at Google for a quick 5 minutes like we were going over earlier, and really make that timely call and not just click next on the dialer, right? And it still served the purpose of being efficient, but also being quality.
No, excellent.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah, parallel dialers, I don't like them.
I was going to say, I mean, for those that don't know the vernacular and the different technology terms, I mean, we can definitely answer those questions as well. So if we don't get to all these questions, will there be opportunities for us to be able to connect? I mean, I'm sure that's going to be one of those questions. And Gina, if you want to address that, if there's unanswered questions, we'll make sure that they get answered post event. There was actually one that I wanted to kind of touch on myself just because of my experience. And so this is for you, Tracy, and we can definitely get you with our client success team on your questions. So that way, everyone's scenario is very unique. So we want to make sure that we're giving you the best answer versus just the broadest answer. So Tracy, those questions that you had in terms of the data integrity, we'll make sure that we definitely connect with you on those questions.
There's one that came up that I just want to address because I, excuse me, I feel super passionate about it. What are your thoughts on dialer apps that localize the outbound phone number? I don't understand how this ever came to be of like, let's get, like my number starts with 561-685. Let's get this software that's going to replicate that number because Adam's going to be more likely to answer. I am so much more likely to not answer when I see that it is a local number with my same prefix because my mind is ingrained to know that that is a cold call, that is spam, and that is garbage. I have no problem with the same area code. Even that, I would tell you, I probably would just use your home base area code of whatever it is. I think it is a scam that someone made up to get a lot of money of like, oh, we're going to make it seem like you're Adam's neighbor. You're not my neighbor. None of my neighbors call me. If someone's calling me with that same prefix as mine, someone's trying to sell me something.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But also to be devil's advocate here,
do it.
for folks that are not consulting for sales teams, they're more likely to answer that phone call because it does have the same area code. Like a lot of people that do answer me and they're like, oh, I thought you were my kid's school, or I thought you were my doctor's office. And they take the call initially because they thought, you know, it was something that was relevant to them. Right. So just to be devil's advocate there, I think it could be a two-edged sword.
Yep.
But I think, Cam, there's the same area code to me is different than the same area code and prefix. So I'll meet you halfway on the area code and agree with you. The prefix, I think, is sleazy.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Area code is a little sleazy, but you know, if they answer, right? Some questions. We have a question about cold emails for the healthcare sector. I think a good way to approach that is depending on if it's a physician or an orthopedic doctor, or if it's a CFO of a healthcare place. I think those are two different things. If you're targeting a doctor or a practice, I would say try and get personal emails as much as possible.
Yeah, I sold in healthcare for a long time, and we work with several healthcare clients as well. Doctors are a different breed, right? Versus health systems. I think health systems, so CEO, CFO, CISO, CTO of like a hospital system or a physician practice management system, fair game, as if they are in tech or anything else. You want to really piss a doctor off, cold call a doctor on their cell phone. You'll never get that sale. I agree with you, Cam. That is a highly relevant, extremely personalized, just-in-time problem-solving email. Because what happens when you call a doctor is you inevitably are taking away patient time, right? Doctors are by design picking up their phones if they're on call because they think that it's, you know, something to a patient, only to find out it's a sales call. Not going to go over well.
Yeah, and that's a very simple rule of thumb. I mean, know your audience. So going back to what we had talked about at the very beginning of the conversation is building out your ICP and understanding their preferred form of communication.
Yep.
Definitely. And Tina, I see your question about using the filtering to narrow down your criteria there. I think there's two ways to go about it, because I think anywhere you go, any list you build, there's going to be some titles, some companies that end up in that list that really aren't relevant to you. I think that's going to happen no matter how many keywords you put in, no matter what you go through, some are always going to slip in. Now, I think to negate as much as possible is to add keywords that are relevant to what you're looking for, building a company list, and then searching titles based off of that company list is going to be the best way to negate any people that are irrelevant creeping into that list. Now, Adam and Mike, I don't know how you guys feel about that.
100% aligned.
Mm-hmm. Same. Nothing to add to that.
All right.
This is a question from Christopher. He's asking about the quantity over the quality over quantity. But if you've ever used personalized, like direct mail, to reach out to as part of your media mix, how does that incorporate into the overall strategy and the sentiment on that end? I personally never used. Yeah, great question. Direct mail or chunk email was actually a strategy that I used for one of my clients, and it worked really well. But it can't just be a flimsy postcard. It has to be something that's going to stand out and grab the decision makers or even the office manager's attention, who's eventually going to get that piece into the decision maker's hand. Adam, is there anything else you'd add to that?
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. We have a client that is a printing company out of Canada. So they not only are they a printing company, but they sell to printers. And direct mail works really, really well for them, right? So Michael, you said it earlier. Number one, know your audience. Is your audience one that goes to the mailbox, that, direct mail is going to be relevant? Number two, it can't be a 5x7 postcard. It has to be something different and something compelling. I think there's a lot of ways to do things like direct mail or gifting, or just things that are outside of the box that you still need to validate your contacts, email, phone number, address properly, but that you could stand out from the noise. If you do it well, it can work, but you 100% need to know to your audience. Like if you send me direct mail, I am never looking at it. But there are people that very much need to be in their mailbox every day. Healthcare is a great one for that, by the way. If you're selling into physician offices, how do you think they get their reimbursement checks? You'd be amazed. Most of them don't come electronically.
That's good. That's good. I think, Adam, we do have a direct question for you for your newsletters. What frequency do you send them out? And then how do you compile this list?
So our newsletter goes out twice a week, once on Thursday, which is a podcast recap of our Wednesday episode. And then every Sunday is a true go-to-market focused newsletter. Our list, I am very proud to say, is 100% opt-in. Nice. So we compile it two ways. When you go, the dog's going to start barking. When you go to our website, there is a pop-up that encourages folks to sign up for the newsletter. A good portion of our LinkedIn posts will also have a link for people to sign up. And we do cold outbound. We cold outbound with a call to action, talking about our newsletter, and simply, hey, if you're interested, respond yes. We'll get you on the list. If not, we'll never email you again.
Awesome. Just curious, why Sunday? I love that.
Because everyone else sends their emails on Saturday.
Okay.
I get probably 27 different newsletters on Saturday morning.
Yeah. And I think Sunday too is a good time for people. They're kind of getting back into their computer. They're checking a couple emails. They're doing a little
Sundays at 11:05 a.m.
Yep. That's awesome. And then another question to that is, do your unbounced cold email list go directly into a different folder? Like, what do you do with the unbounced emails?
Nope. We have tools that automatically, scrub and validate our emails. If we ever get a bounce, it automatically takes them off the list. If we ever get, a reply, it elevates them on the list. We do all sorts of cool things to make sure that we're engaging. And we look very highly at our response rates, our open rates. Open rates are unique because they're typically a vanity metric, and a lot of tools will give a false positive on an open. So we have some ways around that. But we try to really engage with the audience as well to make sure that we are keeping our domain health high.
Love it. Love it. And it all starts with the contact info. And then
it all starts with pulling a list from Seamless of those in our ICP. Hello, little one. Pulling a list in Seamless of those that are in our ICP, building out our list, and then using our multiple domains and our step process to reach out to those folks and hopefully try to engage with them and add some value.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
So Cam, there was one last question that came through. Can we just quickly recap the 10 pitfalls before we close things out today?
Yeah. I will give a couple and then I will turn it over to you guys to finish it off. Does that sound good?
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Because we covered a lot today.
Yeah. I think number one of pitfalls is having a bad ICP or not knowing who you're going after. I think that's number one, because if you don't know who you're going after, you're sending emails to the wrong people, you're wasting your time. Number two is, once you do figure out who you're actually selling into, is getting the most up-to-date contact information you can. So using Seamless to go and grab the relevant titles, the relevant industry, the relevant company size that you're going after to get the most up-to-date information. Because if you're going into a database, you're pooling different contacts, different titles. Who knows if they even still work there or if that information is accurate. Number three, I think, is sending out the relevant amount of emails, the amount of emails that you're trying to get an ROI on, like warming up those domains as much as possible and not sending out 500 emails the first email blast you send. I think those are my top three. Adam and Mike, I'll kind of let you guys take the rest away.
Yeah, I think for me, on top of that, it is be relevant and timely, right? No matter how good your list is. If you're not relevant, if you're not timely, and you're not addressing pain, you have wasted a whole lot of time. Number four is don't use your primary or whatever number we're on. Don't use your primary domain. That's disastrous. And make sure that you're warming up your email.
Yep, absolutely.
I would also, tie into that is not testing and not learning from your engagement. So being able to reach out, to your ICP, if you're not taking the learnings from the responses or lack thereof, can be actual, just you're going to be spinning your wheels. Knowing your audience in terms of who is the actual buying persona, but also who's closest to the pain that you solve for, because your buying persona is different than the one who's actually going to open the door and become a champion for you. So just because the CFO is the person that signs the check and approves the purchase doesn't mean that they're going to have any clarity in terms of the pain that you're looking to solve. And are we at 10 or I lost count?
I've lost count as well. I think we're pretty close. And just one more thing to address of Adam's point of being timely. Intent data is a huge platform to help you identify those accounts that are searching for your services, that are in the market. I think Adam mentioned a guy that he took on that used some intent data to get a hold of him. So I think if you guys are struggling with that, intent data is something really cool that you can use to identify those accounts that are in the market.
100%.
9 and 10 to go. Here, I'll chime in. The last one is to start, right? If you don't start, then you're never going to fail or succeed. Starting on getting your ICP, getting those contacts, sending out your emails, because I tell my clients this all the time. If you send out an email today, you're not going to get a response probably until a couple weeks, maybe a month later. So if you don't start now, it's going to be another 6+ months down the road to when you're finally taking on your first client. So my number one, I guess, would be to just go ahead and start.
Yeah. Can I piggyback off of that real quick before we wrap up? Is that you don't wait to have everything perfect either. I mean, none of us wait until we're going to have 100% green lights to go to the grocery store. The same thing is true is back to just starting and working with what you have and then learning from that. This was a lot of fun. Adam, absolute pleasure. Cam, thanks for moderating this.
Yeah. Thank you
Thanks,
guys.
Cam. Thanks everyone for joining.
Yeah. We will see you guys on LinkedIn.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.